everyone. Thank you for joining us again at Voice of Rohingya Radio. We are a registered nonprofit coming to you from the state of Oregon in the United States of America. I would like to take some time to thank all of our listeners who allow this program to continue providing the latest news through our exclusive interviews, reports from inside the border, and reputable sources around the world. If you would like to stay up to date with our program, you can find our weekly broadcasts every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific online at youtube.com/VOR radio, or you can join our Facebook page to find more information on our activities and past programs. It is July 20th, 2014. For Voice of Rohingya Radio, I am your host, Zach Taylor. The United Nations' new human rights envoy to Myanmar kicked off her first official visit to the country on Thursday, as Radio Free Asia reported, beginning with an inspection of Rangoon's notorious insane prison and talks with the local Human Rights Commission. Yang Hee Lee of South Korea, who took over as the new UN Special Rapporteur on Myanmar in June, is on a 10-day mission that will include visits to communal strife-torn Rakhine and war-ridden Kachin states. On Thursday, she met with Win Mya, a chairman of the government's Myanmar Human Rights Commission, to discuss the panel's work since it was established in September of 2012. This is her first time in Myanmar, so we explained what the commission has done on human rights issues in the country, Win Mya told RFA's Myanmar service. We also told her about the areas we have visited to report on human rights issues. Win Mya said that the Rights Commission also explained the reports it had released concerning a crackdown by authorities on a protest against a Chinese-owned copper mine, as well as on violence in western Myanmar's Rakhine state, which has left hundreds dead and tens of thousands displaced since 2012. He added that the commission had received around 6,000 letters from the public to investigate human rights complaints. The chairman of the government's Human Rights Commission expressed optimism that Lee would have a more comprehensive understanding of Myanmar's rights issues than her predecessor, Thomas Quintana, whose 6-year term as rights envoy to the country ended in May. Quintana, whose relationship with the government was tense at times, said at the end of his term that severe shortages of food, water, and medical care for the Rohingya in Rakhine State were part of a long history of persecution that could amount to crimes against humanity. The former envoy was from Argentina on the other side of the world, and Lee is from our Asian region, Win Mya said. I believe an Asian could have a better understanding of the problems facing an Asian country. I hope her report on findings in Myanmar will be beneficial to the country because of her Asian perspective. Thomas Quintana's term as envoy witnessed Myanmar's transition from a ruthless military regime to a fledgling democracy after President Thein Sein's quasi-civilian government took power from the former junta in 2011, but also saw large-scale rights violations following a new outbreak of military clashes with rebels in Kachin State and communal violence in Rakhine State. Win Mya urged Lee to maintain her status as an independent reporter on her findings in Myanmar. There could be some difficulties in achieving good results if she submits her reports based on political pressure, he added. Ahead of her visit, the UN said in a statement that Lee will also travel to Myanmar's capital, Naypyidaw, Da, former capital Rangoon, and the country's second-largest city, Mandalay, where recent violence by Buddhist mobs against minority Muslims left 2 dead and several injured. In addition to meeting with members of parliament, including opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other officials, Lee also plans to hold discussions with religious and community leaders, civil society representatives, victims of human rights violations, and members of the international community. A frank and open exchange of views will be vital to help me better understand the realities on the ground, Lee said in the statement. And it is my intention as Special Rapporteur to work closely with the government and people of Myanmar towards the promotion and protection of human rights in the country. In Rangoon, she also met with the Arakan Rohingya Union's Asia director and other local Rohingya NGO youth activists for an hour where they presented her a memorandum. Lee has previously served as chairperson of the UN Committee on Rights of the Child and is currently a professor at Songkyun Won University in Seoul. She also serves on the advisory committee of the National Human Rights Commission of Korea. The human rights expert will submit her first report following the country visit, which will be presented to the UN General Assembly in October. Kya Ween, a writer for Asia Times and Burmese Muslim scholar and human rights activist, published a scathing article on Friday detailing the Myanmar government's involvement in allowing and inciting violence against the Muslim minority in the country. In the aftermath of the recent violence in Mandalay, the article says the government has moved to crack down on hate speech, but has also warned the media against making statements that could destabilize national security, saying that action will be taken against those who threaten state stability. Tellingly, however, no action has been taken against those responsible for triggering the Mandalay violence by spreading false rumors on social media, while journalists reporting on the riots have already been threatened with violence. In addition, some observers had noted that the violence has also had a secondary effect. It has successfully distracted public interest from a signature campaign calling for amendment to the 2008 Constitution. The article says such patterns are finally leading more and more analysts to ask critical questions about the nature of recent anti-Muslim violence in Myanmar and the real motivations behind it. Outside of Myanmar, reporting has been less critical, with some major media wires referring to the violence as sectarian. Such inaccurate diagnosis is not new, as international diplomatic and public opinion circles have tended to portray Myanmar's anti-Muslim violence as an unfortunate social consequence of transition from authoritarianism to democracy. In this view, it is the uncertainty of transition and the new freedom of expression that has given rise to the fear of the Muslim minority and ultranationalist Buddhist extremism. This definition, however, is misleading and has resulted in significant confusion both about the form of violence in question as well as its root cause. Indeed, from the point of view of many Myanmar Muslims, it appears to be a case of applying a perfectly sensible theory to the wrong context. Such misconceptions not only ignore the reality of decades-long persecution of Muslims in the country, but they also absolve authorities of their historic responsibility for manufacturing, endorsing, and permitting such violence both directly and indirectly. They also ignore the role played by Myanmar's generals and their cronies in manufacturing Burma Buddhist nationalist ideology and institutionalizing a culture of fear and distrust of minorities, including the Muslim community. Anti-Muslim violence is in fact not a new phenomenon and has been stirred by the military and its proxies since 1981. The misdiagnosis also ignores the fact that the military deliberately designed the 2008 Constitution to maintain sufficient power to protect their interests and have historically exploited identity as a tool to divide and control the country's diverse population. It also ignores the reality that many institutions, including some of Myanmar's Buddhist monasteries, have long been infiltrated by certain military actors and have served as sites for organizing support for the military and their vision of nationalism. That much of the violence has been carried out by mobs that also involve ordinary people does not mean that it is purely a social phenomenon free from any political involvement. Indeed, this form of violence is neither new nor apolitical, as campaigns to spread public fear against Muslims and the mobilization of pogroms have been consistently carried out by Myanmar's military and their proxies throughout the decades of military dictatorship. The reality is that the current anti-Muslim violence is a sign of continuity with the past rather than a break with it, the article added. According to the article, Thein Sein's government now appears to be using the old tactic to kill three birds with one stone, to divert public attention from Chinese interests, to avoid enacting constitutional amendments that would allow opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi to become the country's next president, and to attract voters ahead of the 2015 elections. Government and crony-controlled media have played a dangerous role in promoting an anti-Muslim ideology by portraying Rohingyas as intruders from Bangladesh and Islam as a threat to Buddhism. They have succeeded in obscuring real problems such as land grabbing by the army, civil war, and the use of rape as a weapon against minorities. According to Asia Times, the majority of Buddhists are unaware that they are being brainwashed by the powerful cronies media. Government tolerance of anti-Muslim violence was apparent during the pogroms in March 2013. Victims said that when police were requested to protect Muslims from deadly attacks, they responded that orders were not given to stop the violent mobs. The mystery in that instance is who held the authority to give the orders and why these officials would allow the mobs to target Muslims. The article concludes that while the international community invests millions in government institutions, such as the Myanmar Peace Center, more must be done to hold the government accountable for the role it has played in supporting organizations and movements responsible for inciting hatred and violence. Allowing these deadly and divisive trends to continue is morally wrong and threatens to unleash new cycles of fear, violence, and vengeance that will undermine the prospects of all of Myanmar's people and jeopardize stability across the wider region. Thanks again for listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio, a registered nonprofit coming to you from Oregon in the United States of America. I am your host, Zach Taylor. The owner of Bimonte Ne weekly news journal, his wife, and the newspaper's office manager were arrested on July 16th in the Thai border town of Mae Sot, according to the journal's chief reporter, Thein Min Aung. The Burmese newspaper publisher had apparently been in hiding from Burmese authorities for over a week, since 3 editors were arrested by Special Branch Police on the 8th of July following the publication of an article that falsely claimed Aung San Suu Kyi and some ethnic leaders had been installed in an interim government. The 3 journalists were reportedly staying at the house of a friend where they were arrested by Thai police on Wednesday. Wednesday's arrests bring to 7 the total number of persons apprehended in connection with the front page headline on July 7th. 3 editors and a reporter were previously detained. An unconfirmed report suggested that Bimonte Ne's journalists were taken to a township court and charged under the Emergency Provisions Act before being remanded in custody. If convicted, the media workers could face up to 7 years in prison. Derek Mitchell, United States ambassador in Myanmar, invited different religious and civil society leaders to an iftar celebration at his residence yesterday, according to the embassy's Facebook page. Ambassador Mitchell emphasized that iftar is an opportunity to celebrate one of the world's great religions, the principles underlying that religion, and the universal principles that bind all religions. Those are commitment to peace, equality, justice, and compassion toward fellow human beings. These principles have various names depending on the religion, but the basic meaning is the same: loving-kindness, compassion, and peace. That they reappear across religions and societies is further proof that what connects us will always be much stronger than the differences that separate us. Mr. Mitchell has served as President Barack Obama's special envoy to Myanmar since August to encourage democratic reforms, and is the first U.S. ambassador to Myanmar in 22 years. In other news, Bangladesh will try to strike a deal with Myanmar in signing a memorandum of understanding on security dialogue during the foreign secretary-level talks in August, according to the Dhaka Tribune. Bangladesh is expected to raise the issue of Rohingya repatriation as soon as possible, as the citizens of Myanmar residing in Bangladesh are creating social, environmental, and other problems for the country. Though Dhaka is well aware of the human rights situation in Rakhine State, Bangladesh is a small country and it cannot allow Myanmar nationals to be pushed into its territory, said a senior foreign ministry official. About 30,000 Rohingya refugees are stationed in Bangladesh, while about 300,000 to 500,000 undocumented Myanmar nationals are residing in the country. Other issues in the security dialogue will include border security and management, irregular population flow, human trafficking, arms and drug smuggling, armed robbery at the sea, epidemic and pest attack, and cooperation in defense and border forces. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention issued an official ruling that the 20-year-old prison sentence of ethnic Kachin activist Brang Young is illegal and demanded his immediate release. Brang Young was charged under Article 17-1 of the Unlawful Association Act, a law originally written in 1908 during British colonial rule. Burma Campaign UK accused the Burma Army of torturing Brang Young into a false confession that he was with the Kachin Independence Army, including beating him, piercing him with needles, and forcing him to have sex with a fellow prisoner. The UN ruling noted that Brang Young's arrest was arbitrary and in contravention of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The UN ruling stated that Brang Young was targeted because of his ethnicity. A spokesman from the Burma Campaign UK said that Brang Young was targeted for prosecution as he belongs to the minority Kachin ethnic group. Members of this group have been subjected to numerous arrests, as well as alleged torture against them to extract confessions. He added that President Thein Sein was breaking international law. 2 local officials for the opposition National League for Democracy and a member of the 88 Generations Peace and Open Society stood trial on Thursday in Mogwai Division for using a loudspeaker during a rally without first obtaining permission from the local authorities. On the 9th of June, the NLD and 88 GPOS led a rally in Mogwai Division's capital in an effort to raise support for the amendment of Article 436. NLD's Mogwai Town Chairman So Mo, Secretary Ne Miao Kya, and Maung Maung So of 88 GPOS subsequently found themselves charged under a local administrative law that prohibits unauthorized amplification. So Mo told DVB that the statement from the prosecutor differed from the account provided in previous hearings. He added the officer then admitted that this case originated because another person had informed him about the situation. I asked him if the lawsuit was promoted by a public complaint, and he said that it was not the case. So basically, there is no one complaining to prompt this lawsuit, and I can only assume that there has been pressure from above, Somo said. If found guilty, the trio could face up to 7 days in prison. In recent months, the NLD has taken on the amendment of the constitutional Article 436, which gives veto power to the Burmese military on any amendment proposed, as a cornerstone of their political platform, traveling from state to garner support from the population. Thanks again for listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio. Please tune in next week when I'll speak with Tom Andrews, former member of Congress from the 1st Congressional District of Maine and President and Chief Executive Officer of United to End Genocide. Mr. Andrews most recently served as National Director for Win Without War, a coalition of 40 national membership organizations promoting a more progressive democracy and human rights throughout the world, including Indonesia, Cambodia, Yemen, Algeria, Serbia, and the Ukraine, among many others. A longtime advocate of democracy and human rights in Burma, Tom has worked closely with the National Coalition Government of the Union of Burma, facilitated the creation of the European Burma Network, and served as General Secretary of the Nobel Peace Laureate Campaign for Aung San Suu Kyi. Tom is a senior advisor to the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, chaired by former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. He'll be speaking with me about his recent visits to Burma and his involvement with the U.S. government on ending persecution in the country. You can catch that broadcast and every broadcast Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time here in the United States at youtube.com/VOR Radio, or you can join our page on Facebook to find more information on the program. For Voice of Rohingya Radio, this is Zach Taylor, signing out.